Spread the news that he is back to help the helpless, to befriend the friendless, and to defeat the defeatless.
You give me any more trouble and I'm gonna strangle you with my bare hands.
That's another solution.
You're making it very difficult for me to like you.
Oh, brother, what a bunch of dogs. And dogs is the subject of this special sneak previews, the cinematic canines of the year, the dogs of 1981, the year's worst movies, as picked by me and by Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune. And you know, if anything, it's harder to choose the year's worst films than the year's best films, because you have so many more films to choose from. What we've done, though, is set up some ground rules. Instead of simply taking a cross-section of mad slasher movies and kung fu retreads, we've chosen movies that at least had some pretense of serious ambition. Movies that were supposed to be good, but weren't. Movies that had big stars playing below their games, and movies that were rip-offs, remakes, or sequels designed to cash in on somebody else's inspirations. So they're not only bad movies, they're also really disappointing ones. And now, Gene, you get first pick.
Okay, well, here we go. Sometimes what goes wrong with a movie is something that happens before the first camera ever rolls. That's the casting. And First Monday in October was such a film. Casting Walter Matthau as a Supreme Court Justice. That's like asking Pat Boone to play The Godfather. And cast as a right-wing conservative justice, the First Lady on the Supreme Court, Jill Clayburgh. A terrible choice because Clayburgh in the movies is strongly identified as liberal and as a feminist in such films as An Unmarried Woman, Starting Over, and It's My Turn. See if you agree with my opinion of the casting errors in this picture as you watch this scene where Matthau, the liberal judge, debates Clayburgh, the conservative, on the issue of censorship.
The people of this country have only one absolute protection against chaos, the law. And you and I were appointed to this court for only one reason, to uphold and sustain that law.
Watch out. You can't turn the law into a straitjacket. The law's got to be a suit of clothes a man can wear. It's got to fit easy, be comfortable. Law shouldn't strap a man in at the throat or the brain or the crotch.
That's vivid. Do you know what you're doing? You're making Maloney more important than the law.
He is more important than the law.
This court doesn't try men. We put their trials on trial.
That's it. We're constantly examining the witness who isn't there. All we ever get to see are lawyers, cold records, cold briefs. Where's the human being? Where's the pain? We've got to touch flesh.
I'll tell you where the pain is. It's in the people who get hurt. The innocent little kid who sits in the dark theater while Maloney's filth pours over him. That's where the pain is.
You're on the right track. You're beginning to look at people. And when you let a little more humanity into your thinking, you might make a damn good justice.
Sure. Well, I happen to have seen this play on stage with Henry Fonda and Eva Marie Saint in the same roles. Henry Fonda, a Supreme Court Justice? You bet. Eva Marie Saint, who I hadn't seen in years, she was believable. But Matthau and Clayburgh, no way. Matthau turned this picture into the Supreme Court of comedy. A terrible film.
Also an inexplicable film. Once they had the situation, which is to say the liberal old guy Matthau and the conservative young woman Clayburgh, Apparently they thought the situation and the confrontation was enough. They didn't add a plot. What was the movie about? What was the action in the film? I was never sure.
How about a Supreme Court movie where no decisions are reached?
Terrific, yeah.
This film failed at every single level.
At another point, Mathau's wife walks out on him and leaves. That's it.
I wish we could have done that.
Great. My first, my first dog is Hardly Working, starring Jerry Lewis. And Jerry Lewis was the king of comedy at the American box office at one time, and in France, he's still considered to be one of the greatest American film directors of all time. But after a string of flops, he didn't work much in the movies in the last decade. In fact, he didn't work at all. So there was a certain amount of anticipation surrounding the release of Hardly Working. People want to know, is Jerry Lewis back in form? And the answer was, well, let me put it this way. Hardly Working is one of the worst, most incompetent, most chaotically constructed comedies that I've ever seen. Jerry plays a chronic loser who's always out of work till he finally gets a job as a gas station attendant.
Would you check the water, please?
Yes, ma'am. Hot! Oh, hot! Oh, hot!
Your gas is overflowing.
Yeah, right, okay. Hold it, please.
I'm really very sorry. I know excuses don't mean a heck of a lot, but this is my first day on the job.
Where are you working tomorrow?
One basic difference between that film and some of the better Jerry Lewis films of years ago is that in those films, Jerry played a character. Here, he is just a man with odd, weird, strange, inexplicable behavior. There is no comic premise underneath it. And the strange thing about Hardly Working is that slapstick sequences like that one are intercut with a grab bag of totally unrelated other scenes. Tear-jerking soap opera scenes, scenes where Jerry carries on endless conversations with himself in drag, scenes where Jerry exploits offensive old stereotypes about Orientals, scenes that seem to find themselves in the same movie almost by accident. Hardly Working not only wasn't funny, it was acutely unpleasant to sit through.
I agree with you completely, and I'll add one other problem the film had. The old Jerry Lewis films had Dean Martin, and they were a great pair. In this film, Jerry tries to play both the schnook, the jerk, and the romantic lead, the same character.
It's a split personality. He's playing both sides of the script.
So now here's the most amazing thing. I saw this film a year ago in France, and what they say is true.
An audience of Jerry files, right?
Yes, French. They loved it. They were laughing hysterically. I'm sitting there, dead silent. And then I saw it again here in this country. Awful.
Maybe the subtitles are funny in
No,
French.
it's not that. I think it may be just a thing that they think is supposed to be funny. I don't know how to explain it. All I know is that this is a horrible film. Okay. Many of the films that stunk up the year involved big-name stars. And what were stars doing in all these lousy movies? Well, not much more than collecting a big paycheck. Let's take a brief look now at 3 such dogs of the year, beginning with Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher in Under the Rainbow, a screwball comedy about some craziness during the filming of The Wizard of Oz. Here's a sniggering love scene in which Chase corners Fisher in a hotel room. He's a private detective. She's the film's casting director.
No, shh, I'm with the Secret Service. Secret Service? Do you understand? You do? Good. You promise you won't scream? Good.
Secret Service, huh?
Oh, yes. Yeah, look. Shh. Let's calm down, see? Look. Bruce Thorpe, United States Secret Service. Okay?
And I suppose that's your gun, huh?
Oh, no, I wear a shoulder holster.
2 other big stars in the pathetic comedy were Carol Burnett and Alan Arkin in Chu Chu and the Philly Flash.
By the way, I don't see no audience. Want to buy a watch? Certainly do not. Now, will you beat it?
Don't start with me, lady. I had enough of that already today. This ain't your property. How about watch? Nice watch.
Harry, you listening? When I get you on a fix you good, you hear me?
I think that's enough maracas for a few months. Both Arkin and Burnett play street bums who become involved in a long chase involving that stolen briefcase that contains a government secret worth a lot of money. The people who made this picture must have thought that putting a star in a funny costume, Burnett all dressed up like Carmen Miranda, automatically gets laughs. No way. And finally, we come to the third film in this group. Lauren Bacall trashed herself by playing a celebrity stage actress much like herself in The Fan. Here, a crazed fan spies on her from a street corner.
It has taken me a long time to say this, but I know the time is now right. We will be lovers very soon, my darling. And believe me, I have all the necessary equipment to make you very, very happy.
Douglas! Are you in any trouble?
No, I'm not in any trouble. Miriam, at the moment, my only trouble is you. You interrupted a very wonderful evening. Right now, I'm having dinner with a very famous actress, a great star of stage and screen.
Who?
Never mind.
Look, Doug, it was one thing when we were kids to dress up and collect stuff and pretend. But when you grow up, you gotta face the world like... Douglas.
This is nothing but a mad slasher movie with some famous people in it. Why do stars like Lauren Bacall make bad movies like this when most of us believe that stars can make anything they want? Well, sometimes an agent pushes the star into just the best paying role available. Also, sometimes actors, when they become stars, only seem to want to get involved in films that show off their star qualities, make them the centerpiece of the film, and they don't want to be just one ingredient in a larger story. So, 3 lousy star-filled films this year under the rainbow, Chu Chu and the Philly Flash, and The Fan.
And we have such expectations when we go to those films. We say, hey, these names indicate the film probably has some class. So we walk in, we're all the more disappointed. Another trend that wasn't exactly new this year was the compulsion to produce remakes, retreads, and sequels to any movie that even did remotely well at the box office. The biggest of those disappointments is my next film, Halloween 2, which was a sequel to John Carpenter's very good 1979 horror film. The original inspired a wave of awful, mad slasher movies, including its own awful sequel. This movie ripped itself off. Halloween 2 was just another slasher movie with the same scene being repeated in endless variations. That basic slasher scene where the victim creeps around in danger before the killer leaps out at him, or more often, leaps out at her. Just total exploitation. That was Jamie Lee Curtis as the girl in danger. In the original Halloween, Curtis was a competent, sensible young woman who tried to defend herself and outthink the killer monster. But in Halloween 2, she's just another screamer, just another helpless young lady left to crawl around parking lots in a series of inflamed, sadistic fantasies. Of all the movies that ripped off the original Halloween, the biggest rip-off was Halloween 2.
You would think that people who had been associated with a hit would want to try and top themselves. I mean, that would be the challenge, wouldn't it be? Either not attempt a sequel or try and do something better. All they do here, though, is repeat themselves.
So like you say, you would think so.
No pride. Okay, now we get closer to that magic moment when I'll be picking my worst film of the year. But this one came close. It's the Cannonball Run, a miserable Burt Reynolds chase picture about a bunch of loonies in a high-speed cross-country car race. Now, what was wrong with the film? Not the cars. They were just fine. They went real fast. No, what was wrong was the actors. The film was filled with old performers reworking tired old gags. You want some examples? Well, how about Peter Fonda, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Roger Moore?
He looks like Gregory Peck in a blue flannel suit.
Why don't we go over there and help him out?
What do you mean, we?
Well, shall we join the fracas?
Listen up, give me somebody!
Step back, my dear. I must warn you. I'm Roger Moore. Who? Roger Moore.
Again, I think this is like Chu Chu and the Philly Flash, where the filmmakers, in this case, director Hal Needham, who's Burt Reynolds' good friend, simply thought that anything that the actors did was funny. I disagree. Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin in Ocean's 11, they were funny. But that was more than 20 years ago. These men are not intrinsically funny anymore.
There's something else that's not intrinsically funny in a Hal Needham movie, and that is a chase scene and a car crash.
Yes.
In one of his movies, he had 50 squad cars running into 50 semi-trailer trucks, and it was not funny. It was just a gargantuan, dumb event.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to realize that destroying cars and running them around at 100 miles is not funny. It has to be a plot. There have to be characters.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, we've covered old gags, remakes, and sequels, and now how about resurrected characters in recycled genres? Hollywood seemed at times to run out of new movie heroes during 1981, and so they just went back to the vaults and dusted off the Lone Ranger, Charlie Chan, and Zorro. Reliable old heroes, they put them in new movie productions. Let's start with a look at the durable and dependable masked rider of the plains and his faithful Indian companion. The movie was called The Legend of the Lone Ranger.
Try this.
A silver bullet.
It's more accurate. Tribal chiefs first use silver on their arrows. Makes them fly longer and straighter. Silver is pure. It's been a symbol of justice and purity since the year of the sun.
It's also a great hedge against inflation. Another reincarnated movie hero, Charlie Chan, with Peter Ustinov in the lead, in Charlie Chan and the Curse of the Dragon Queen.
You're getting warmer.
Grandpa, upstairs to the killer's room, where it's attached to a, faucet. Faucet. That's it, Grandpa. All we have to do is trace the hose to the killer's room, and we have the killer.
So sorry. Hose not go to killer's room. Hose go on roof of building, where there is water tank. That other end of hose attached to bottom of elevator, with time valve, and only fill with water after killer has made good his escape.
That's it, Grandpa.
Yes, good lesson for young detective. When faced with the obvious, look elsewhere.
Finally, George Hamilton resurrected another old-time movie hero, Zorro, the Gay Blade.
Diego.
Diego. You know it's me?
Yes.
How long you know?
From the start, I think. At first, I thought there were two of you.
Well, you see, at the beginning, I had a little...
But then I realized you're just two sides of one man who is changing.
You are the reason for the change. And now I know it is permitted for a man to be vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
The Lone Ranger, Charlie Chan, and Zorro. Those names used to kind of guarantee entertainment when I was a kid, but those three 1981 movies didn't have the magic of the originals. They exploited their heroes without ever really appreciating the real humor and style that went into creating those characters in the first place.
Absolutely. I I don't understand. Again, it's a matter of pride, I would think. You're a movie maker. You want to make something fresh. I don't even know why they bother to go back. It's such a safe play. It's the kind of thing a financier thinks of, not someone who loves
I think you
movies.
put your finger right on it. These are deals, not movies. It looks good on paper. They get the money. Everybody gets paid. The movie is an afterthought.
Okay. Now, my choice of the worst film of 1981. It's Buddy Buddy, starring the great Walter Matthau and the great Jack Lemmon, directed by the great Billy Wilder, and a script by the great Billy Wilder and his longtime writing partner, the great I.A.L. Diamond. How could all of these legitimately great talents have created an astoundingly bad film? Well, I saw Buddy Buddy, and I still don't believe it. Matthau plays a morose hitman trying to make one last kill. Unfortunately, in the next hotel room is Jack Lemmon, a suicidal man depressed because his wife has left him.
Now, what is it?
I had an idea.
Yes?
Why don't you call her?
Call who?
My wife. Tell her that I tried to kill myself. Here's the number.
I don't even know your wife.
Well, tell her you're a friend of mine.
I'm nobody's friend.
Tell her that my life is hanging by a thread and that I'm slipping fast, and then she'll have to come.
Look, I don't seem to be getting through to you. I'm a very busy man, so don't bug me, don't hassle me. Get off my back.
You mean you're not going to call?
No.
Okay, the deal is off.
What deal?
You don't call her, I'm gonna do it again.
Oh, you
and again and again. I got razor blades. I got sleeping pills.
You got a handkerchief.
A handkerchief? Yeah. What are you gonna do with that?
A real rarity, a bad Matthau Lemmon movie. Why was this the worst movie of the year? Because it was a comedy that didn't contain a single big laugh. And when you see Matthau and Lemmon in this mess, the effect is truly depressing. Again, I think this is a case of the stars and their director believing that anything they do is funny. And in Buddy Buddy, Matthau, Lemmon, and Wilder prove this is simply not true.
You know, Gene, we talked before on sneak previews about the fact that humor is totally subjective. Either you laugh or you don't laugh.
Right.
In my case, I agree with you. I did not laugh. I was appalled. I was disappointed.
No.
So were most other audiences. And the question is, who laughed at what point in the making of this film? Did they laugh when they read the screenplay, or did they say, we'll fix it on the set? Did they laugh on the set, or would they fix it in the editing? At what point did they think it was going to be funny?
Yes. The other thing that I notice is that comedies are taking a large share of our worst of the year list. And that's because when a comedy is bad, it's bad. It's obvious, too. You're not laughing.
Well, here's a bad drama. My worst movie of 1981 is Heaven's Gate, an enormously ambitious Western by a very talented director, Michael Cimino, who made The Deer Hunter, which ironically was my choice as one of the best films of 1979. But Heaven's Gate cost an estimated $40 million. It had a good cast, including Chris Christopherson and Christopher Walken, yet it was a stunningly boring, disconnected, uninvolving, impossible to follow film. Look at this inept action scene, which you can hardly see through the clouds of dust. People are screaming nonstop in foreign languages, but the filmmakers are so unsure of themselves they give us subtitles for the screams, and the effect is hilarious. I'm sure that exactly what she was saying was, I'm so frightened, George.
Yeah, help me.
Help me, the subtitle of the year.
Yeah.
Let me explain why I'm choosing Heaven's Gate as the year's worst film. Now, it's not because it was objectively worse than, say, Hardly Working. No movie could be. But because it was more disappointing. Yeah. Enormous resources of talent and money were squandered on a movie that apparently never knew what it wanted to be. The filmmakers got out there on location, they spent millions of dollars, got a lot of great-looking shots, but they didn't tell us who the people in their film were, or what their relationships meant, or what story they were trying to tell.
You know, I think if we can find something that runs through all of these pictures, I think the word ego applies. The ego of the comic filmmaker or the comic actor who says anything I do is funny, the director who will build a set and forget the elements of the story, ego. And I think what happens is, obviously, when you become a star, it's a very heady experience. When you win an Oscar as Best Director, it becomes very heady feeling. And maybe you lose control, the control of striving to please. You think that you can please by your nature, and of course no one can.
I think that's a very good comment, and especially when you think that behind all of these egos who are so eager to listen to people who tell them how great they are and how talented they are all kinds of producers and agents and people who know that if they can get the ego to do something, they can take 15%, or they can get a production credit, or they can make money. So all of these movies that we've shown today made lots of money for somebody.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that you mentioned earlier today, which was very good, was that the trading in on your name. I would hope that the actors that we've skewered a little bit today would think twice, in the sense that they really cheated the audience, that they traded on their name and didn't deliver the goods.
And here he is, the intrepid cinematic pioneer who helped us sniff out those lousy movies, Sparky the Wonder Dog. Hi, Sparky.
25 minutes to get here from that vault.
Film vault.
Okay, well now here is your last chance, your final warning, in review, the worst films of the year.
Baby, you're no good. I'm gonna say it again. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good.
The Dogs of 1981, they may come back, so be on the lookout. And you know, it looks like a good job being a movie critic and getting to see all those movies, but on the other hand, the problem is, as a movie critic, you also have to see all those movies.
I also think people must think it's the most fun is making that worst list and getting back at the films. Frankly, I like making out the best list, because this is sort of a depressing part of the job, realizing that the list is so long, that films have gone wrong so many times, and that really what is special is the jewel, the film that does stand out.
How would you like to have a sneak previews film festival right now of all those films on this show?
No way.
No way. Okay, that's it for this week. Join us next time on Sneak Previews, and until then, we'll see you at the movies.